Yes, we used to call it printing. And for centuries after Gutenberg started the whole thing by inventing movable type, it was printing. The printer, sometimes with the help of an artist, set words in type and he printed books. Graphic communications today is something else. It involves more people, more sciences and skills, more activity than Gutenberg could have imagined. Artists today shape ideas into graphic forms and rely on other specialists to reproduce them. Yet they have a link with Gutenberg. They think of their work as he did, as a combination of art and adventure. Sometimes the adventure is more pop than purposeful, more medium than message, and mostly for laughs. Graphic communications. We used to call it printing.
The final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission to explore strange new worlds, civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
This is the first voyage of the Space Shuttle Enterprise. Its mission, to make leaving the Earth as easy as flying around it, to begin the economic exploitation of space, to open up the final frontier. Space Shuttle Enterprise is named for the starship of Star Trek. Unlike the starship, the shuttle won't find new civilizations, but it may help found new civilizations. Human settlements in space, giant habitats like these, in which tens of thousands of people will live and work, exploiting the resources of space for the benefit of Earth. In September 1976, the theme from Star Trek heralded the space shuttle's debut at the Rockwell plant in Downey, California. On hand were 2 Star Trek regulars, Dr. McCoy and Mr. Spock. Star Trek fans in a letter-writing campaign had succeeded in having the first shuttle named Enterprise, and NASA, sensing a new and younger constituency for space, was happy to go along. The Enterprise is the first of 5 similar spaceplanes or orbiters. Its first journey was across the Mojave Desert on its way for flight testing. Its extraordinary shape is the result of its extraordinary task: to be launched into space like a rocket, to operate in orbit like a spacecraft, and then return to Earth and land like a glider. The shuttle's major job will be deploying satellites, placing in orbit virtually all the satellites which today are launched by conventional rockets. The shuttle can only achieve orbits a few hundred miles high, and many satellites, like those used in communications, have to go up to 22,000 miles, where they will hover over the same spot on Earth. The shuttle's ability to come and go to orbit, taking up modular units one at a time and adding them piece by piece, means that very large space stations could be built up in just a few shuttle flights. Building large structures in the weightlessness of space is very much easier than trying to do the same thing on Earth. These space structures could be expanded with virtually no limit to their eventual size. But why should you want to? This is the main reason: a solar power satellite, a panel of solar cells several square miles in area that can capture the full-time sunlight of space and turn it into electricity. This energy would then be beamed down to Earth below as microwave radiation. On Earth, the microwaves would be converted back into electricity again. NASA's enthusiasm for solar power satellites isn't surprising. Here is a task which could more than match the capacity of the shuttle. It builds directly on NASA's experience with space, gives the agency a role in helping to solve a very practical problem, and could set the sort of dramatically visible goal NASA hasn't had since the days of Apollo. But the agency has learned the wisdom of caution, and even the most ardent supporters of space solar power are careful in public not to let their enthusiasm for such a way-out project become too obvious. Christopher Kraft.
Yes, I do believe that it should be one of the major themes of the NASA program. That isn't to say that NASA believes that space solar power today is the solution to the energy problem. We think it has promise. We think it should be worked on. We think it should be worked on a lot harder than we have been working on it, and that the country ought to make a reasonable investment in that kind of an energy system.
There has been throughout the ages a continuing search by the artist for the means to portray our actions and reactions to the world we perceive about us. The sculptor continues to manipulate his materials, to create by his hand and the eye of the mind an object which will say to the viewer, "This is what I am. Look at me. Feel."
Program about income taxes. Do you think the present tax system is fair?
I believe so it is. What kind of a question is that? You know that's not fair. Of course it's not fair.
Why isn't it fair?
Why? Because they have the rich, only the poor pay the price.
Not fair, not fair.
How can you ask anybody a question like that? All you gotta do is put out a statement over the air and you'll have more answers than you can handle.
Put me on TV.
You know that.
Well, why do you think it works that way, though?
Why?
Yeah.
Because there are too many crooked politicians, that's why.
What do you think about it?
I think everyone should pay their share.
Do you think the people at the top are paying their fair
No,
share?
I do not. It's the man that's paying taxes.
Poor man.
That's right, poor man.
What, that's an Internal Revenue bill?
Yeah, right.
What happened?
Man, it's just ridiculous, the taxes that my husband and I have been paying. It's about $8,000 a year, and my husband is a musician. And when you think of all the different people that, you know, are really making really hard money and paying absolutely nothing, it's really absurd. And they've been like hounding us, I mean, truly hounding us.
What are you going to do?
Pay it. What else?
When they take the taxes off, there's nothing left. I think it's awful. And when you asked about the rich, I think they ought to really pay. I mean, they've got marvelous accountants that know how to fix everything up. We don't.
Our tax system really is dead wrong. People are beginning to smell it, but there's not nearly enough talk going on about it, not nearly enough discussion. I don't understand that. I'm Robert Townsend. I've spent quite a lot of time in corporations. At one point, I was head of Avis Rent-A-Car, and I learned a good deal about our tax system, and it stinks. A few years ago, because of our screwed-up tax laws, I was able to rip off quite a bundle and retire. I thought maybe you might be interested in it. When I became president of Avis, part of my deal was to buy $100,000 of common stock in Avis. Avis did pretty well, and after a few years, I was able to sell it for $2 million. Now, that wasn't taxed like your salary. That's a capital gain, which is a privilege of the rich. So my tax on that was limited to 25%. That meant that I could keep $1.5 million of that profit. I put that together with the rest of my bundle and put it into tax-exempt bonds. Last year, from those bonds, I earned or got, I didn't earn it, I got $100,000, which I didn't even have to report to the federal government, much less pay any taxes on. I'm just a beginner. There are people who are earning over $1 million a year that aren't paying any taxes at all.